record now. And then I'm going to hit screen sharing. Where did you go? There it is. Now let's see if it's going to work.
Yeah, it seems to like Fantasy Pros.
Okay, great. Okay.
All right.
You start the show.
Here we go. And it's taking its sweet time to connect. Hold on just 1 second. It's not a sharing thing. It's me getting into MixLR thing.
Okay.
Jeopardy theme music, anyone?
Dennis,
Yep.
Yeah, you shouldn't do that as your career, sir.
Thank
It would
you.
frighten my animals.
I understand. Why are you being a pain in the ass, MixLR? I'm going to stop that. I'm going to say no, and I'm going to try it all over again. Sometimes it just doesn't like to do what it wants to do. Come on. Be nice. Be nice. Behave yourself. Work with me. And we have liftoff. Here we go. How you doing, everybody? This is Dennis Michelson, DMIC. Welcome to a very special draft special for the science of fantasy football. Why the science of fantasy football? Well, when you get a meteorologist, that's me, and a biologist, that's the professor, together in the same room, they're going to be talking about the scientific method, which will make you a better fantasy football player. And this is redraft season. A lot of folks have their home leagues coming up. For the more casual fantasy football fan, we have our draft special today. And joining me as he does each and every week here on the Science of Fantasy Football, it's the professor, John Bush. John, welcome back.
Dennis, you said special 4 times, so I'm thinking church lady from Saturday Night Live, Dana Carvey. Back in the day, I flashed all that. So if our younger viewers, you can check out Dana Carvey as the church lady, and her trademark was isn't that special. So anyway, I'm an old fogey. So we are trying to Zoom record this. So we are using Fantasy Pros mock draft simulator, and we are going to get heavy into Dennis's giving away all the secret stuff, his better than zero draft approach. So I thought we would do a few draft positions and let him walk us through it till we get tired. But so Dennis, you're seeing this. We're going to say we are starting at draft position 1. So I think, and we're drafting against the experts, and we basically have 1 quarterback, 2 running back, 3 wide receivers, 1 tight end, 1 flex. I'm not crazy. No defense or kickers, and 12 on the bench. So hopefully we can move quickly. But I just wanted a real time, it's not scripted. We don't know how the software is going to kick choices to us, but I thought we should let Dennis plow through his give it all away better than zero draft strategy. Editor's still mad about Dennis giving away his secret stuff. But anyway, so I'm going to hit start, Dennis, and I'm gonna kind of serve as the master of ceremonies, Mr. Question. So I'm gonna let you talk through it, and then if I've got questions about what you did or some of your choices, you can tell us. Before we start, is there anything that you like to use coming into a draft besides your consistency forecast that is up on the Science of Fantasy Football? He's got all of it laid out on a plate. Is there anything else, Dennis, that you like to have that gets you ready for your better than zero drafting approach?
Yeah, when I go into a draft and I've got my home league that will be celebrating 23 years, we used to have our draft in person like all home leagues, but as folks have moved away from the Chicagoland area and taken other jobs, because this was originally a United Airlines operations department draft that we started 23 years ago. Now it's held online, but we have our draft every year. And the first thing that I like to do is go back to my diary for that particular league and see if there are any big trends that I've picked up, because one of the things I love to do is write a little note that, okay, Diane does this, Dan does this, and try to get an idea of which direction they might go in the draft, just as a reminder. And then I take one last look over on footballguys.com at the latest news and catch any last minute injuries. And then I am ready to rock and roll. And I like to have a different strategy based on where we are in the draft, because it's all about value and it's all about position scarcity index for me, which is a result of how many players you start at a given position. So starting from draft slot number 1, my pick would be narrowed down to 2 different players, depending on which direction that I thought I would wanted to go in the draft, because the 2 guys that I think are head and shoulders above the pack when it comes to their position scarcity value is Justin Jefferson at wide receiver and Christian McCaffrey at running back. It's not a surprise. Neither one of them is going to surprise anybody by picking them number 1 at their position. And with number 1 pick here in this draft, because we start 3 wide receivers, I would start out with Justin Jefferson.
Justin Jefferson, and this is PPR, by the way. And Dennis, I hit start the draft, and of course, that's not. It's kind of slow here, but anyway. So, if it had been 2 wide receivers, would you have gone CMC? Would you have gone Kelsey? What? How would you approach that, if or a short bench?
Yeah, from a small 12 team league,
Mhm.
1 quarterback, and even starting 2 wide receivers, I'd probably stick with Justin Jefferson, just because I'm just a little more confident that he will hold his form. And by holding form, I'm saying he is going to be a lock to be a top 3 at his position. I'm worried about CMC. What does San Francisco do? They've got the quarterback, rotation going right now, and you assume it's going to be Purdy, but it might not. I just don't know how to read that. So, not being able to read a situation, that's where I look at that situation and I say, you know what? I'm not going to take a lot of chances here. I'm going to go with the more certain element, and that is I know Justin Jefferson is going to be the number 1 wide receiver on a team that will probably be very draft or very pass heavy. So that makes him an easy pick with that number 1 pick.
Okay, so I hit the button and we have gone 24 down. It is pick 212 and 301. Your team, you're back on the clock. It looks to see what's out there. And the experts say Devona Smith, but Jacobs, Henry, Keenan Allen are there. That's in the top 4. Dennis, you can do whatever you want. If you don't like any of those, notice all the 3 big quarterbacks are gone. Mark Andrews is gone. Kelsey's gone as well, but Allen, Hurts, and Mahomes are all, no, they're still available. Damn, that's good. That's good.
Well, let's take a look at the quarterbacks. I always love to go position by position when I'm in a draft. It doesn't mean I'm going to go quarterback, but I like to see the best quarterback that is available.
It is
Mahomes, Hurts, and Allen are all available.
Yep.
Now, I've got 2 picks in a row here, correct?
Yes, you do. Yes, you do.
So I know that these guys are going to be long gone by the time I come around again. Yeah. So I'm going to keep Mahomes in the back of my mind. Let's look at running backs available.
Okay. Henry's there. He may be the best. Yeah, Henry and then Jacobs and Harris. So it falls off quick. And Jacobs may be a bad pick there given his controversies.
Yeah, if he was under contract, and especially if he was signed to a long-term contract, I might like him a lot better. Let's take a look who is the top at the wide receiver, because I have more sleepers at running back this year that I'll be happy with that'll fall in the draft. So I would look at
Devona Smith and Keenan Allen are your top 2. Everybody else is kind of the scrubs at this point in the draft.
Is Waddle still available?
We can go to the cheat sheet. Should be able to. Let's see. Waddle.
Waddle is gone.
Yep. Waddle is.
Boy, they really went heavy wide receiver in this draft here, which of course we're drafting against the computer. So they went heavy wide receiver.
Yeah, look at that. If you look
very heavy wide receiver.
We're in tier 3 according to the experts.
Yeah, very, very interesting moves there. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to flip the script on things a little bit. So I am going to go ahead and I am going to take Mahomes at quarterback. Even though it's a 1 quarterback league, I love having a quarterback that is going to be the best in the league, because if more of the top wide receivers were available, I might double up on a wide receiver here. But with all of the wide receivers basically being kind of ordinary after those picks, and go over to the running backs, if you will, because I think I'm going to grab my first running back here and really flip the script, because a lot of times I will take a lot of guys that are a little bit different than what folks might be expecting. And I'm going to take Joe Mixon as my RB1. I know the pros
Dennis,
here.
Why are you going against Henry?
Henry's got a lot of mileage on him. I'm a big believer in too many carries over the course of the last 3 years. There used to be a great study by the football guys that said anybody who got more than 250 carries for 3 years straight was going to be a liability going forward, because that's just too much of a beating to take. Josh Jacobs, I don't like because of the contract situation and him getting late to camp. Najee Harris is a good player, but not on a good offense. I love that Cincinnati offense, and I will take Mixon as my RB1.
Just curious, that study you mentioned, did they get heavily into stats? In other words, just kind of, sample size? Was it any kind of depth that, in other words, is it at the level that I would approach that question? or did you
It
know?
was a pretty in-depth study, but of course it was done many, many years ago. We're
Mhm,
talking about a study done by the football guys,
mhm.
I think from 2010 through 2015. So it's an
Okay,
old study.
so there's some room maybe next year, Dennis, if you'll remind me. I
Definitely want
I
to
would be
revisit
glad
that.
to
Yes,
revisit that and give it the professor treatment here. So Dennis, we are now at the 412 501 for you. You want to take a look
let's
at the
let's
cheat
take a look at
sheets?
let's take a look at the cheat sheets, and
Yeah.
I will
So
see
mhm.
who's gone at the
The
various
experts,
positions
of
here.
course, would say Brees Hall right now.
Yeah,
So,
and I'm a
okay.
little bit concerned about Hall's health.
Yeah.
That was my
Dennis,
biggest concern.
you could use this tool. You can hide the drafted players. So now,
Perfect.
I kept their tiers, just, people may need that. But anyway, so that's where you're at. All the quarterbacks, like you knew, would be gone. Burrow is at the top, Brees Hall, and Debo Samuel there. And I don't know if you're thinking tight end. Are you thinking tight
Yeah, I'm thinking maybe tight
end? Waller,
end Waller.
Waller, Kittle, Pitts,
Very
Goddard are the
good.
top four.
Very good. So I am going to go in this round here,
Mhm,
and I'm going to say I need a wide receiver to go with Jefferson.
mhm,
And I really like to add here as a quality pick. Let's
mhm.
go to the wide receivers, see who the experts are suggesting.
Well,
And there's
pretty
no
much.
surprise because I also like Debo Samuel in
Mhm.
this situation. So Samuel
He,
will be
he,
my
yeah,
he'll be my WR2. So
there
I'll
you
take
go.
him.
I drafted him. So now, where are you going for 501?
Well, let's take a look at the running backs again.
Okay, okay, there it is. So, RBs. Okay, Brees Hall, Madison, Walker, Damian Pierce.
I like Walker, but I'm not in love with him. I
Mhm.
am really, really high on Darren Waller at tight end. So I'm going to take
Uh,
Waller as my tight end.
so you're
And
moving almost into kind of a close zero RB. In other words, you did get your Mixon, but you haven't doubled up on your RB at this point, right?
no, and I don't mind that strategy because I
Okay.
have two guys that I'm targeting for later in the draft that
Hmm.
I know will be there and who
Hmm.
I think are going to have a better season
Hmm.
than the consensus. So in the back of my mind, I'm thinking if I get one stud running back to hold
Hmm.
down the fort, I'm in a situation where I can go ahead and be fairly comfortable
Hmm.
that I will know that I will have my second running back taken somewhere else. Had this only been a two wide receiver starting lineup with two flex positions, I
Hmm.
might have gone for a second running back here. But
Hmm.
I like Debo Samuel because his consistency is really, really strong. The only concern about Debo is he occasionally misses some time, but I'm not good at predicting injuries. I don't care about
So,
injuries,
so
so
we're
I'll
moving
take
to
him.
Waller, right?
We'll take Waller's our fifth
Why
pick.
him over Kittle or Pitts?
I like Waller because he could be the only other tight end in the league other than Travis Kelce to
Mhm.
lead his team in targets this year.
Interesting.
Darren Waller is a beast of a tight end. He did
Beast.
so
Okay.
well with the Raiders when he was healthy.
Hmm.
And again, I know he's got a few years on him. I know he's got some mileage on him. But the move to the New York Giants, I think he's going to be their best red zone threat by a large margin. It's going to be him and Barkley getting those red zone looks. And I look at Waller as being a good touchdown potential each and every week. He could be a double digit tight end or touchdown guy at tight end and he's the only other guy that I feel that way about. Kittle is an interesting case because if you look at the games that he played after CMC got there, he was still getting his yardage, but he doesn't seem to be getting as many red zone looks, and the tight end talent drops off considerably after Waller and Kittle. So if I want one of the elite tight ends, and in this case, I'm getting the second tier of tight ends behind Kelsey, who is in a tier all to himself. Darren Waller's the last hope for that, so I will take him.
You just purchased shares of Waller here. Here we go. So now we will continue. By the way, Dennis, I don't know when's the last time you did this, but the mock draft, for those who are kind of new to all this, they actually have something called 2-pick insights that are available just to give you some nudges. And I don't know, I tried to click it, but it's gone now. But anyway, you can use that. I don't, but you can. Okay, you want to look at cheat sheets? We're at
Let's look at the cheat sheets.
Yeah, 612-701 here. Okay, I'm gonna hide the drafted player. So the top, you're probably not doubling up on a quarterback in a while, right?
No, I'm gonna be okay at quarterback for right now.
Running back, we've got Kamara in a tier by himself and Johan Dotson in a tier by himself. So those seemingly, according to the experts, are the obvious RBWRs, but there's, the next tier below them. Look at the running wide receiver next tiers. Look at that. What is that? 36 to 52. Oh my goodness.
There's been a lot.
Why even have a tier at that point? Yeah, that's yeah. We're in the 72 pick, 34 wide receivers gone. Only 24 are. So we're starting RB3s. We are starting basically WR4s, just, So something that I use, and I posted, I think last week about, I play an FFPC format that the Draftinh, the ADP have been running, the wide receivers have been at least a block ahead of the running backs. So seeing the 3s versus the 4s for RBWR is not surprising at all. Last year, it would have been, but not this year. People are all over the wide receivers, Dennis. So what at this point, you can assume that there's still going to be pressure on that. So how are you got some, I hate to use the word sleeper, but if you got some targets and wide receivers in your head coming in, or are you surprised by this kind of, these WRs are leading the whole charge here?
No, I'm not all that surprised because it is a start 3 wide receiver league, and generally the computer will be a little more aggressive at filling out those WRs than a lot of average players will, who might be a little bit more top heavy with the running backs. But I've got 2 obvious choices here. One guy has really been going up in the ADP. He wasn't going until the 8th round until about 2 weeks ago, but he continues to ride up and up the board. And that's my wide receiver number 3, which will be Jordan Anderson from Minnesota. Now, you might notice that I already have Justin Jefferson. It doesn't bother me. Yeah. It doesn't bother me at all to have both, because I know this is going to be a very aggressive offense. And I now have the 2 top wide receivers on an offense that will be throwing a lot.
Are you taking him because of the stack, or you don't like Dotson, who the pros would pick over Addison.
So Dotson's ADP has gone up considerably because folks think that Eric Bieniemy is suddenly going to turn the Washington Commanders into a pass-heavy offense. They were not a pass-heavy offense last season. They will not be a pass-heavy offense this year. Eric Bieniemy is really good at coming up with a strategy that the head coach wants. So because of that, I'm fading Dotson a little bit because Washington will not throw the ball as much as Minnesota. If you look at Minnesota's stats last year, when it came to red zone targets per game, one of the leading players of in the NFL last year, it wasn't the leader, but a pretty high up guy in red zone targets was actually Adam Thielen. Just didn't cash in as many touchdowns as usual. Jordan Addison is a similar, very physical wide receiver who's a lot younger, and I think is going to be there to capture a lot of those red zone targets, because when teams try to jam Jefferson, they try to stop Hawkinson, they try to affect the running back coming out of the backfield. That's going to leave their second option at wide receiver, and that is Jordan Addison. Okay. I don't mind having the stack because this gets me all of Kirk Cousins' positive statistics without getting his interceptions. So I love that pick indeed.
Thinking your second QB should be Cousins? Is this where this is all leading?
It's a possibility. We'll see how it unfolds.
Okay,
sometimes in a 12-team league, I will only draft one quarterback, and I'll just figure my guy's not going to get hurt.
Okay. So where to next? RBs?
All right.
Or are we going to stay with WRs?
Well, we're going to take a look at the cheat sheet. We're going to see who survived making it to this next round for me. Did I take my second pick already?
No, you have not.
Oh, well, give me my second pick, which is going to be an automatic pick for me. It's at running back. It's DeAndre Swift. Love this kid. I cannot believe that he is falling to the 6-7 turn for me. He's a bargain right there at the 6-7 turn. He is the last running back on the list here, other than Alvin Kamara, who has a capability of being a top 5 running back in the league. Now, I know what people are saying, and they're absolutely right. Philadelphia is going to be a running back by committee offense. I just expect to see more of the passing downs go to Swift. I expect to see more of the first down work and the red zone work go to Swift as well. I don't count on Penny being around there for all the weeks either. So I really like that opportunity to grab a top end running back as my running back 2 before we get any deeper in the draft.
Okay, here's the sheet. You grabbed your 2. We are at 8-12 and 9-1.
And at that 8-9 split, this is another automatic pick for me because I love this guy as my 4th wide receiver on a team, because I like to have as many wide receivers that can lead their team in targets. So I've got Minnesota's top target guy. I've got probably their second target guy, and I probably have San Francisco's first target guy, although Ayuk could challenge that. But I'm going to go back to wide receiver here, and I'm going to take Juju Smith-Schuster. I love Juju Smith-Schuster as a great extra wide receiver. I don't want to be counting on him as one of my top 3 wide receivers in a start 3 league, but I love the fact that I can get him here at a nice discount.
And again, Brandon Cooks is the choice by the pros. Any reason why you went Juju over Cooks other than can lead his team?
No, that's simply it, because I think Cooks is a sound player,
Uh-huh.
but I'm worried that after Lamb, that we'll get a target split among the rest of the Dallas wide receivers. Tolbert's looked better this year. Gallup is back and healthy, and Brandon Cooks is a year older, and he wasn't really impressing me last year. Of course, he wasn't happy with his playing situation. So I got into a situation there where Brandon Cooks is good, but not great. I'm going to pass on him here and let somebody else have that decision on when to start him, because I like having my fourth wide receiver as a guy who is going to be getting the chance to lead his team in targets. Let's take a look at tight end just for amusement purposes,
For
because
amusement purposes.
when I pick a guy like Darren Waller, who has a slightly higher than normal injury chance, I like to sometimes protect myself. Same thing as if I went late on quarterback and I went with a guy like Tua, who has an injury history, I'll back him up more often than I will a quarterback like Mahomes, who seems to stay in there and stay healthy. Love Freiermuth, so he is a possibility here with my 9th pick. But let's take a look at running back as well.
Hey, let's see. Here we go. Herbert, Samaje, Zach, and Jerick McKinnon. I know you're a homer for Chiefs, but he's 8% of pros like him. So
yeah, and you won't see me liking him here either. Let's go to the cheat sheet so I can look at the big picture again.
Okay. So I notice you're really loving the cheat sheet that they give you here.
Yeah, I do love the way that Fantasy Pros does the cheat sheet, because I can see a lot of what's unfolding in one easy to look at situation here.
We are leaving the RB3s. We have Herbert and Samaje Perine, and we have pretty much where we're about halfway through the WR4s here. So it looks like the WRs have slowed down a little bit. Notice the quarterbacks and have picked up a little bit, where we've got and I think your Cousins is gone. Yeah, I don't see him on the list.
Yeah, he went here in this past past rounds. So yeah, not surprising at all. And I'm not too worried about backing up my quarterback, because it's Mahomes. I will take a replacement value for 1 week off the waiver wire if I have to, or I might take a guy later. I'm targeting maybe Jared Goff in a round or two as my backup quarterback this year, because he has so many games indoors. He had such a home away split, and I think a lot of that had to do with playing in a dome. And I'm looking at a situation where I think he'll have a good offense under his belt again. Looking at the running backs, there's really nobody I'm in love with. I wouldn't mind backing up my Swift investment with a Rashid Penny, but I think it's too early on him. I also like Damian Harris with Buffalo, but I'm going to take a chance on him as well. And I'm going to surprise people here with this pick a little bit, because I'm going to take Freiermuth as my second tight end, because I think Freiermuth also has that possibility here to be a threat as maybe playing as my flex for some time. Plus, I'm playing keep away here, because he is so far ahead of anybody else left on that tight end list that now I protect myself against injury in case we lose Waller, but I also have that possibility of playing him in the flex if I need to. What if one of my wide receivers gets hurt? I might be able to go with my tight end backup as the solution there. Freiermuth, again, don't love the offense, but I love the player, and I love the chances that I'm taking there. I do see now that we've refreshed everything,
Yeah,
that I
we're
did
at
miss out on
10,
Damian,
12, yeah, and 11-1, folks.
and I
So,
missed out on Damian Harris, and I'm okay with that. He was a guy that I really would have liked as my third wide receiver, but since it's a four or three wide receiver, I would have liked him as my
yeah,
third running back. I'm
the
saying,
the cheat sheet shows you that Gainwell is, see the little symbol there? That's
yeah.
handcuffs. So people like that.
Yeah, and I'm not crazy about Gainwell as my handcuff. And as I
Okay.
said, Rashad Penny, I would have preferred as my handcuff, but it's not going to hurt my feelings that he's gone. I still got Goff at quarterback. It's still too early to go for him. I'm set at tight end now, so I don't have to look back there. So it's just wide receiver and the running back position that I'm looking at. And as I look at these wide receivers that are available, there's really nobody that jumps off the board at me as a guy I must have. Now, if this was a best ball versus a redraft, I might like to have Tyler Boyd on my team right now. But the problem with Tyler Boyd is he's going to be a hill and valley kind of guy. He'll have some big weeks, but he'll have some weeks that are hard to predict. So I'm not too crazy about that. So at running back, I'm going to make it real easy here. And at this point in the draft, I'm going to take Tank Bigsby as my RB3. Love him in that offense.
Tank. Is he really a tank? Or is
Tank
that just
Bigsby. He is a tank. I think he is going to be a tank for me.
okay?
So I'm going to
Well,
take him right here.
I drafted him. At least I supposedly, yeah, he's gone. So you're got one more pick now.
And I'm going to go another running back here. And this is
Okay.
going to surprise people a little bit as well.
Mhm.
We know that Alvin Kamara is going to miss at least 3 games. Will Alvin Kamara be one of those guys that, comes back and, gets into the swing of things and he misses a couple of more games down the road? Jamal Williams is a great player and he will be getting quite a few touches for New Orleans, but taking over in the Alvin Kamara role while he's out is Kendra Miller, the rookie. I'm going to take another rookie running back here as my RB4.
Kendra Miller, there he is. And I'm gonna hit draft.
So
Okay.
at this point in the draft, I'm really happy. I've got my elite quarterback. I got my elite tight end, which is part of the strategy in my better than zero.
So why don't you revamp that? Because we've kind of been really focused at the player level. So why don't you kind of, this is a good time to wind back and tell us what the overall game plan of the better than zero really is.
The better than zero strategy says that you don't need to go heavy running back early. And that's why I played along with the zero RB in that label. But instead, I like to get the best player value at each point in the draft. So early in the draft, while I talked about wide receiver because it's a 3 wide receiver league, and that sort of made the difference for me for Jefferson over CMC. Other than that, I don't look at positions early in the draft. I look at what is the best value at this point in the draft. I also like to go elite quarterback more often and earlier than most people in the draft. Drafting at the 212, that made Mahomes a value at that pick and why I wasn't afraid to go early quarterback. If I don't go quarterback there, then I'm grabbing somebody like Fields a couple rounds later, and I'm okay with that. But Mahomes gives you such an advantage in consistency week in, week out. It's either him or Hurts are the most consistent quarterbacks in the league. I'm kind of like to go away from Josh Allen because the fantasy football playoffs are at a time of the year where the weather's awful in Buffalo. So I don't like to build in any problems at the end of the season for myself with having the Buffalo quarterback, or for that matter, all of the Buffalo elite guys in the passing game. I'm kind of going to be a little bit suspect on them because of that. So I kind of tend to fade them a little bit. But the better than zero strategy, the main part of this is after you get your first 4 or 5 wide receivers, you're basically taking running backs the rest of the day. And that way you can maximize how many chances you have at that very key running back position. So that's the better than zero philosophy in a nutshell, is just go for as many bullets in the gun as you can fire for that position and be pretty happy at the end of the day. So going into this next round, and of
12,
course
12 and 13-1.
12 and 13, you're at a point where you're really not going to be overly excited and exuberant about anybody who is on this list. Let's face it, there's a reason that they fell this far in the draft, and it's that they've got a lot of holes in their game. But I see a player that jumps out more because of opportunity than anything else. I think he's going to get some red zone touches for his new team. And I think he's got a little chip on the shoulder that he wants to prove that he is not finished yet. So as a real bargain for my RB5, I'm going to take a guy who was being drafted as an RB1 last season. I'm taking Ezekiel Elliott. I know that New England likes to split touches among their running backs. And so I'm going to take a chance on Zeke because he's got the back class. He's got a chip on his shoulder. He's got a lot to prove. And he's a guy that I will take here at that position. My other selection here in this round, I'm not in love with any of the running backs or wide receivers left on the board here. I've got a couple of ideas for guys later in the draft at wide receiver that might fall to me in the right position. So I'm going to pass on both running back and wide receiver. And I am going to go ahead and I'm going to back up my starting quarterback. Now, I do need to look at one thing, though. What is the bye week for Mahomes? I think that's week 12, if I'm correct.
Yeah,
we can look at my roster.
Yeah. Tua is week 10. Let's see. Here's your roster. Nope. It's warning you, you can't have Tua.
Yep. So that's
you
the
can't
problem.
Have Jones.
That is the problem with having Tua, is because his bye week
could
will
have
be
Jared Goff, though.
And that's who I'm going to take right here. Is I'm going to take Jared Goff and be backed up at quarterback. Usually when I draft an elite quarterback, I don't feel like I need a great second quarterback, but I don't mind having Jared Goff as my backup just in case something would happen to Mahomes. We know that Kansas City's going to be, they're looking at the playoffs. So if he gets the least little bit of an injury, they might be looking at him as a guy that they want to just kind of not get too excited about. So here, dropping down to round 14 and 15, this is an easy pick for me. I'm going to add another running back to my roster, and I'm going to add Tyjae Spears from Tennessee. Again, I don't mind having a lot of rookie running backs because the joy of the better than zero, he's my 6th running back. So it doesn't matter if I'm taking a few more running backs than normal, if I've got some rookies that will maybe be good and maybe not be so good. And on the wide receiver side, because that's the only other place that I'm looking for another player here, I'm going to take Hyatt from the New York Giants. I like his value here as my WR5.
Okay.
And here's a situation where I now have two Giants on my team. I'm not really sure how much they're going to be passing either, but I like the fact that Jalen Hyatt is a possibility to be the top wide receiver in targets on that team. And I'll take the bargain pick right there.
Okay, you have now moved to 12, 16, 12, and 17, 1.
And I'm getting pretty close to the end of my draft, I would think. How
You've
many
got
rounds is this
5
thing going?
more
5
picks.
rounds. Okay,
5
so
more picks.
I'm going to concentrate a lot on running backs at this point of my draft. There's nobody I'm really crazy about on the wide receiver side. So I'm going to look right at running backs here. And, I'm going to look at a situation here where what if something happens to my guy Mixon? I want Chase Brown from Cincinnati. I want the rookie as the backup. I think during the season, to start the season, he might not be deemed to be the true backup to Mixon as far as losing some touches to him.
The pros say it's Chris Evans
Chris Evans is the number 2 running back
right now.
but Brown is the rookie, and Brown has a better 3-down look to him, I think. So I will take him at this point. I'll take Chase Brown. I'll take the rookie again. Heavy on rookie running backs. I'll take a shot. If I'm wrong, they can always be replaced as the season wears on. And right now, boy, this would be a tempting place to take Kareem Hunt. He's been rumored to every single team under the sun, but he hasn't landed with anybody yet. But he's a possibility. My other possibility is in Los Angeles, because I'm not sold that Cam Akers necessarily stays healthy all season. So I'm going to take Zach Evans from the Los Angeles Rams, and he is my RB8.
Wow. Okay. And here we go. So we are moving to the 18, 12, and 19, 1. We got 3 more picks.
3 more picks, and I think it's going to be a pretty much an automatic pick here, depending on who comes up. And looking over the field here,
would you take a third tight end at this point?
It's a possibility, but I don't see anything at the tight end position that really excites me. Okay. Maybe Gesicki would be the guy that I maybe would be finishing out with. Okay. Let's go back up to the running backs and wide receivers. Mm-hmm. And in this situation, see, I'm kind of almost thinking I made a mistake by taking Goff, because Carr is available right here. Sure, and he might not have been a bad 1-week replacement for my Mahomes pick. Mm-hmm. But there are some guys that I kind of like here. On the wide receiver side, I'm going to surprise some people here, because I'm going to go rookie again, and I'm going to go Cedric Tillman from Cleveland. Again, it's the unknown. I'm not sure what I'm going to get with Tillman, but I like his body type for being a first-year guy at wide receiver who might do something on that team, so I will take him. And the other guy that I'm going to take here, this is getting to the lean portions of the draft, as you might expect, but I am going to go ahead. Let's page down on the running backs. I want to take a look at more of the running backs. Because here's a situation: when I get into a draft, I don't care if a guy that I want is off the tier list when it comes to the supposed experts' picks, because I have a guy in mind. Let's take a look at if we can do a search for a player.
Yeah.
Do Ty Chandler, see if he's been drafted yet.
Chandler.
And he might be gone already. Yep.
Yeah.
He is gone. All right, so we're not going to worry about that because he is gone. He was kind of a long shot pick anyway. So I've got two picks in mind here, and I'm going to go with the running back. I'm going to take Dwayne McBride from Minnesota. I would have liked to have had Chandler at value, but somebody beat me to him. I'm not so sure who is going to be the backup to Alexander Madison this year. So I'm going to take a shot at a Minnesota player.
Here we go. Okay, this is your last pick.
My very last pick in the draft, and it will be an easy choice for me here because I see a player that just jumps out to me as a potential upside guy, and that is Khalil Shakir from Buffalo. I am a big guy for the rookie supposed tight end this year for the Buffalo Bills team. But if I'm wrong about my guy, my tight end pick, my rookie pick extraordinaire that I love in Dalton Kincaid. If I'm wrong about Dalton Kincaid being a guy that will be sort of like their third wide receiver after Gibbs and Davis, Khalil Shakir has the most upside advantage other than that. So I like my team because I'm top heavy at each position. I could use a little more depth, could have used a little more depth at wide receiver, especially, but that's because I went elite quarterback and elite tight end with Waller and Mahomes so early. But I like those picks because the elite quarterback and tight end will give you an advantage. And I think both of those guys give me an advantage. But I end the draft with 9 running backs, 7 wide receivers, 2 tight ends, and 2 quarterbacks. That's a good balanced team for me.
I enjoyed your journey there. I would have made a few different ones, but I think at the end, I probably don't do enough rookies. I probably drafting some tired old war horses, and that's probably not good, but I probably could learn from you there. But other than that, I enjoyed you taking us through at least pick one here. Do we want to do another pick?
Yeah, let's do another round.
Okay.
Let's do from the 8th draft slot.
Okay, 8th draft slot. So let's see what it will allow us to do here. Restart. I wonder if I hit that button. I don't know, Dennis. I've never. If I hit, are you sure you want to? No, I do not want to do that. Yeah, I know I don't want to do that. So I probably need to restart the whole thing again here. So we will do that here. Draft wizard. Is there a mock draft lobby? No, I want to do the draft simulator. There it is. Okay. I got to remember what I did here. Okay, start a draft. Okay, so we're doing PPR 12. You want to go to the 8th pick. 1-3, 1 bench against the experts. Okay, we're starting at the 8th pick.
Yeah, we'll get to see real quick who's available because that will depend. That'll make a big difference on which direction I go in this draft. From the number 1 position, it was really clear which direction I was going. But here from the 8th position, it becomes a completely different strategy, obviously, but it's a very easy strategy when I see somebody on the board, because if Travis Kelce is on the board anywhere from the 6th pick on in a draft, and sometimes earlier than that, there's only a couple of running backs and a couple of wide receivers that I trust more than Travis Kelce. Kelce becomes the automatic pick here at number 8 if he's on the board.
He's on the board. And now we roll. Pick 205 coming up. Do we
pick number 2 becomes an automatic for me as well, because this is a guy that I actually have a chance in my logical range of outcomes. I've got a chance for him overtaking the top wide receiver on his own team. And that's crazy because I have Tyreek Hill rated pretty high as well. But Waddle is the kind of big play guy that I love to have on my team. Him being available here in round 2 makes him an automatic pick.
So you've missed on any of the elite quarterbacks, the top 3?
I'll pass on the quarterbacks. If they're available, great. If they're not available, I'm going to go a different route. Again, here at the 8th position, it becomes a lot different than from the number 1 pick.
See, now Allen and Hurts are still available. So
wow. Let's take a look at the running backs, just out of curiosity.
Yep. Jones, Breece Hall, the top
Nobody
2.
I have to have there. Let's take a look at the wide receivers.
Okay. Higgins, Metcalf, Ridley are kind of the top 3.
Wow. Let's go back to quarterback.
Yeah.
And I'm going to take my guy who I think has a chance. Him and Mahomes are 1 and 1A in my rankings. So to get Jalen Hurts, an elite quarterback in the 3rd round, I am going to take that any day of the week.
And there you go. Okay. Now this is a long wait here. Yeah, 405.
I was tempted to go after Higgins. Let's take a look at the flex position here, because that'll simplify things for me.
Cooper, Samuel, Hopkins, Godwin.
I am still without a running back at this point in the draft, and I don't care. I'm going to take Deebo Samuel as my WR2.
Okay. Interesting that it's playing completely different than the way the 1 position played for you.
Absolutely. Now, here's a situation where I really could use a running back, but I see a guy on the board that I can't resist. So I've got to take Michael Pittman. I really like Pittman, and I love getting him at this value. And to have a guy who's got WR1's upside as my WR3 is built me a very strong wide receiver core after just 5 rounds.
Yep. And you're round 6-5.
Let's go to the running back group, because I know I've got to start concentrating on looking at some balance to my lineup. And this becomes a very easy pick for me. I'm not concerned at all about his injuries. Denver has a great defense. We know that Sean Payton is going to make Russell Wilson look great by having a strong running game. I am taking Javonte Williams from Denver as my RB1, and I will absorb
White, huh?
I will absorb the injury risk. Yes, I'm a little concerned about Rachaad White. I will take him at the right spot, but I'm a little bit concerned about him right there.
Okay, I just stuck with the running back. I see you.
And I've got an easy pick here. Let's take a look at the let's take a look at the wide receivers just to make sure I got all my bases covered. But I think I've got my guy
I
in
think I see your
mind.
guy. Yeah.
Yep.
Ooh.
Yeah, I'm going running back for sure. And you know who I'm taking because DeAndre Swift is there and he will be again my RB2. He will double up on both of these rosters because he was a great value on both of these teams. Now, I
So
love
yeah,
I love what I've built here because I've
let's
got the
look at your
potential.
let's look at your roster while we're going here.
I've
Let's
got the potential for the best tight end, of course, with Kelsey. I got a potential for
so
a
you got
top eight,
Hurts.
top
Yeah.
8, top 10 wide receivers. All of my top 3 wide receivers have top 10 potential. Hurts, I got in the top 3 at quarterback. And then Javonte Williams and Swift, I think, are in that second tier of running backs where I really like the way they look on my team.
We got a flex out at 805, but I really Hurts could be 1 or 2. Kelsey should be 1, and you've got some RBs that could be RB1s for you, and of course WRs. That is it to me. This looks better than what you dealt before. Maybe I'm wrong.
I like this roster better right now because it's got better balance and I
Yeah.
like the way I'm positioned going forward. So let's take a look at the wide receivers at this group because I'm not crazy about any of these running backs.
Dylan or Herbert. Okay. Oh, your Minnesota guy survived.
And I will take him. I'll take Jordan Addison as my
Over
WR4
Pickens.
over Pickens. Yeah, I'm not crazy about that offense. I'm a little bit concerned about both Deontay Johnson and Allen Robinson, the newcomer, stealing some touches in what also should be a run-heavy offense. So I'm going to go for the pass-heavy offense and take Jordan and Edison. Now, what if something were to happen to Justin Jefferson? Now, all of a sudden, I got a guy who can take over WR1 value on a weekly basis.
You're
Now,
at 908.
There's only one problem I see with my roster, and it's not at wide receiver. Wide receiver, I now have 4 wide receivers with all 4 different bye weeks. I love that. You notice I haven't talked bye week at all during any of these drafts. I worry about the bye weeks when they get here. And I am not against having one really bad bye week. So week 10 is going to be my liability with this team because I'm going to be looking at a situation where I've got more of my top players out on week 10 than any other week. So that's fine. I'm okay with that. I'll be able to roll. Let's take a look at the running backs at this point in the draft. That's a position where I really think I need to solidify my running back situation. And there's 2 guys that I really like at this spot. I love Jamal Williams with New Orleans, but I like Damian Harris a little bit more. I am of the belief that Damian Harris is going to win out for more touches over James Cook.
So
now,
Dennis, just to let you know, look at the ADPs 100 versus ADP 161.
Yeah, not worried about it.
Okay.
I don't think he'll be there at my next pick, so I'm going to take Damian Harris as my RB3 right now.
Okay. Forge and Horde, I like it. Okay, we're at 10:05.
And mainly because I know there are some wide receivers that will fall to me in this position. So let's take a look at the wide receivers because I might be interested in going for a 5th one there, or I might be interested in going for another position. Not crazy about any of these wide receivers that pop up. Tight end, I've got Freiermuth that's there. Let's take a look at the quarterback situation because week 10 is going to be a tough week for me. So I need a little better than normal quarterback as a backup.
Tua's out for you.
Tua's out. And bye week of 7 for Prescott. That is tempting. Let's take a look at that flex position as a whole.
Okay.
Let's go to the cheat sheets. I want to get the big picture of where we are with a few of my guys that I've been targeting. Yep, hide those drafted players for me.
Yep.
And that'll give me an idea of where I want to be.
Again, look at the wide receivers are leading. We're 51 gone versus about 40 something gone.
And I feel
running
really
back.
good of having 4 of those top 51 because all of my top 4 guys are capable of being a starter for me. So I'm happy with that. And this is going to be another automatic pick for me because I'm going to continue to add to my running back core. And I'm going to take Tank Bigsby from Jacksonville. And again, another guy that'll be on both of my rosters, drafting from the number 1 and the number 8 slots, which is very surprising sometimes when that happens.
Yeah. Okay. You're at 11-8. Okay.
So I'm dropping down to 11-8 here, and I'm going to take a shot at a guy that might surprise some folks because he's going to miss a lot of time to start the season. But when Jameson Williams comes back, he could be an impact player on an offense that could be passing the ball quite a bit. So I'm going to take Jameson Williams from Detroit as my wide receiver 5. And now I'm pretty much set at wide receiver. By the time I need a backup wide receiver, he will be back and he will be up to speed and playing in a very good offense.
12:05.
12:05. This is a situation where I know I need to have another maybe impact player. Let's look at the tight end situation. Even though I've got Kelsey, I'm always looking to see what I might want to do as a backup. And let's take a look at Dalton Schultz. Let's see where his bye week is.
Does it? Yeah, 7. So he's
7. So it's different than Kelsey. So that's a possibility. Let's look at what the pros are saying on the flex label here.
Okay. Getting suggestions, flex. Oh, here it is. They love Tyler Boyd.
Yep, they like Boyd a lot more than I like Boyd. Again, in best ball, I really like him. In the redraft, considering I've got 5 on the roster already.
I was about to say it. I don't see for this team Boyd makes sense right now.
No, let's take a look at the running back situation.
Yeah.
So I want to hoard running backs all that I can here.
You got Mitchell, who's injured, Singletary, Alger, and Foreman are the top 5 here.
Let's go back to the running back at cheat sheet running back because
so
I
you
may
don't
want
like any of these.
I'm not crazy about any of those guys right there. I want to see
Singletary's not going to do something.
He could, but I'm a little bit concerned about Damian Pierce taking more of that role.
Okay.
Yeah, and here's a situation where I would, before I make my next pick, I'm certainly going to have to look up the injury situation for Elijah Mitchell because that's one that I was not familiar with because I have not targeted him as a guy that I really want on a lot of my teams. So I'm looking at what the injury situation is for him and see if it's anything that might be considered significant. That'll be the big factor here. So let's see if there's any news on his injury that they're giving me here.
Okay, I click on him and news. Expected return this week.
Yeah, we're going to draft Elijah Mitchell. I'm not worried about it as long as it's not a serious injury, I'm going to add him because I'm not going to need him for the first few weeks
What do you
anyway.
think about a running back who has hip issues?
Uh, Everybody in the NFL is going to have hip issues and issues and everything else, as long as they're expecting him to be active. When I'm looking for bench players, I'm not too concerned about the injury situation.
Okay, your quarterbacks are doing okay. Your tight ends are getting a little lean here. Not saying this is the time, but I mean, I see a couple that's still of interest to me, and a couple quarterbacks that are interest. But what are you thinking at this point?
Well, at this point, I'm thinking I'm pretty happy with the direction that everything is going. And I'm going to take a speculative pick here
Okay.
because one guy has been a little bit on the gimpy side in the Kansas City Chiefs training camp this year, and it's been Isaiah Pacheco. And last year, Clyde Edwards-Helaire actually put together a nice streak of about 5 weeks before he got hurt. And he was coming off of some he was coming off of preseason surgery. So he's didn't have gallbladder surgery again this year, just like my theory on Brian Robinson from Washington. He didn't get shot yet this year. So I like Brian Robinson. At this point in the draft, round 13, I'm looking at all upside. I'm looking at a plug and play running back for later in the year, possibly. I'm taking Clyde Edwards-Helaire from a great offense of the Kansas City Chiefs. I'm getting again value here because his back class tells you that when he does start and play full games, he gets you 10 points in PPR leagues. At this point in the draft, that's all I expect and
14,
want from a player.
14-5.
14-5, I'm getting to that point in the draft where I'm starting to get a little bit concerned with a little bit of my backup situations at different positions. But again, I'm not going to worry about quarterback. I'm not going to worry about my tight end situation because I might go into the season with only one tight end since that guy is Kelsey. Or, of course, I might take a surprise tight end at the back end of the draft and then replace my guy during the bye week since this is redraft and I can make substitutions and you never know who's going to step up to the plate. But here I like a rookie running back. I'm going to take Tyjae Spears from the Tennessee Titans because I think he's a value.
You took him in the other team too.
You might notice a few guys that I'm going back to when they're available. I'm taking them because I like the value that those players offer. It's late in the draft. I'm only looking at upside. Tennessee is a run-heavy team. If something were to happen to Derrick Henry, the answer is going to be Spears.
15-8.
15-8, and I get to a situation where I might want to cover myself at wide receiver with another pick. I also might want to go another route here for quarterback to protect myself. Let's check Derek Carr's bye week here and see if it does not coincide with my guy.
He's good. He's good. Week 11.
Week 11. And so he's a possibility. And one thing I know, Professor, is I trust your defense against position numbers. And this is a situation in the draft where I say, what if something were to happen to Jalen Hurts? Well, I know from reading all of your information on defense against position that Derek Carr has a very favorable matchup during the playoffs for the fantasy football season. So at this point, I'm not in love with any of the running backs. I'm not in love with any of the wide receivers. I don't really need a wide receiver. I'm well versed at wide receiver. I've got different bye weeks for almost all of my wide receivers. So at this point in the draft, I'm going to take Derek Carr as backup quarterback.
You're taking him over Fournette as a big speculation? I'm just curious. I've noticed Fournette's still there.
Fournette's still there and he's still without a job, as is Hunt.
Yeah.
And I am just curious of why that is happening. So when I'm
Okay.
curious and I have no idea why something is happening,
Right.
I will usually avoid a player in
Okay.
most redraft leagues. Now, that doesn't mean I won't keep an eye on him and make a bid on him in free agency or grab him even later if he drops it
Well,
another couple of rounds.
Hunt and
He's
him are
again
still there. Yep.
available on this round once again. Who
And
are my
tight
tight ends that
ends,
are available?
you could
Let's take a look
stack.
at let's take a look at Sam Laporta's
Yeah,
bye week.
just wanted to. So over Juan Johnson, since
Yep.
you did pick up Carr. Okay,
Yeah,
Laporta.
let's see what Laporta's bye week is.
So it looks like you got a choice if you're looking for a tight end, because we
Yeah,
know Johnson and Laporta's.
that
Both of
is a
those have
possibility.
favorable DAPs. Actually.
Let's take a look, scroll up so I can see my wide receiver situation. I'm in pretty good shape with my wide receivers, but I want to see if
Corey
anybody
Davis
jumps out at
said
me.
he was stepping away from the NFL. I just saw
Wow.
that today.
That surprises me,
I'm
but that
not
is kind of an
sure.
interesting move.
Yep, there it is. So it's so folks, be aware he's available for draft. And if you're not really focusing, you could have drafted somebody who's not going to even play this year. So just sometimes these, mocks and even the real site, ESPN things, they may not be up to date to the minute. So be cautious. And remember, Dennis said, first thing he does before he goes into draft, late breaking injury. Twitter's a great place, or other places to find. You just don't want to be surprised. And, Corey Davis would have been a bad present if you would have drafted him here, Dennis.
And I love going to footballguys.com in the news section. It's totally free and it is quick on the updates.
They
but it's also not
once you get in their deal, they usually send an email every day with the news. So I really enjoy their take on things. I really like them.
They are one of the absolute best when it comes to paid information sites. It's quite a bargain. Yep. Joe Bryant and the boys are some of the originals in this business, and all of the original football guys have gone on to other great things, like Greg Kellogg is in the Hall of Fame. Had a great chance to talk to him at length at the fantasy convention. Bob Harris, who I have the most admiration for in the way he looks at data, and you hear him on Sirius XM all the time. And also Bob Long, who put on the great event there in Canton. And he is the king of consistency data. He's the guy that got me thinking about consistency in a different way and changed the way that I look at fantasy football data. Here in round 16, we're getting nice and late. And I am going to double up on another guy that I had from the first draft. I am going to take Jalen Hyatt as my sixth and final wide receiver on this roster. So
you're not taking another one?
Not going to take another wide receiver. The rest of the game is my game plan here. Okay. Doesn't mean that somebody won't catch my eye that I want to try to add to my team, but I know I don't need another wide receiver at this point. My pick here, let's take a look at the tight ends again.
Both of them are still there.
And I am going to roll the dice with Mr. Sam Laporta as my tight end
over Juan, who really got a lot of mileage last year. Why are you going?
So New Orleans signed Foster Moreau, and Foster Moreau then got sick, has beat his sickness, and is now active and in camp. And I have a feeling that we're going to see a big change to way the tight end targets are done with New Orleans. It doesn't mean that I don't still like Juwan Johnson. I'm adding him in a lot of best ball leagues because he's a great red zone target. But let's say something did happen to Travis Kelce. You're going to see a lot of big game, little game, or no games from Juwan Johnson. You're going to see a lot of little scores and big scores if he gets into the end zone. Sam Laporta is more of a speculative pick that if I lost Kelce for any length of time, that I think Laporta could end up being a pretty solid tight end. Detroit threw a lot to their tight end last year, even after they traded away Hawkinson. Sam Laporta is better than both of the guys that they had at the end of the roster at tight end. I think Sam Laporta by week 6 or 7, when I might need him, could be a good upside play. And all I care about late in the draft is upside potential. I don't want to draft a guy at tight end 19 or 18 off the board in this case. I don't want to draft a guy at tight end 18 who finishes tight end 16. I want a guy at tight end 18 who can give me top 10 weekly value by week 6 or 7. So I'll take the chance on the rookie right there, and I'll take my shot.
Yeah, 1805.
All right, at this point in the draft,
three picks.
You're looking at all upside potential, and I see a guy that I'm going to take a shot at who offers me nothing but upside potential, and that is Sean Tucker from Tampa Bay. Why Tucker? Because nobody else really impresses me at running back, and that includes Rashid White. White is a guy who's ended up.
Didn't he get some play the other night?
Deuce Vaughn is going to be a gimmick player. I think he's too small to get a lot of touches any given week. Sean Tucker is an undrafted free agent. He has not been all that impressive out of the box so far. But if something were to happen to Rashid White, there is absolutely nothing on that depth chart that scares me in Tampa Bay. So at round 18, all upside potential, I'm going to take a chance on a guy who was a pretty impressive college player when he was healthy.
The computer picked Vaughn right after. That was kind of interesting. Okay, 19-8, 2 more picks.
19, and I am going to go back to the running back position. And again, I'm going to surprise some people here with this pick because there is such an upheaval, I guess you could say, in Indianapolis. So I'm going to go outside the tier here, and I'm going to take Deion Jackson because he's the only veteran on that roster that has the chance to play a good role on that team. So I'm going to take a shot at him because we did see him do okay last year in some mop-up situation when Jonathan Taylor got hurt. They might get rid of Taylor, and it'll be Jackson or Evan Hull, the rookie, that will be the only 2 guys on the roster that could possibly step up and take over that role for Indianapolis if something does happen to Jonathan Taylor. My last pick in the draft, and I am going to go for a totally speculative pick here with my final pick because I'm looking up and down the rosters, and there's a guy that I'm going to take, even though he will also start the season on the suspended list. If something happens to Tony Pollard, I'm not sure that Malik Davis is the answer. I'm not sure that Vaughn is the answer. I'm going to take Rojo with the 20th pick. It's a very speculative pick. It's my 10th running back, which is the whole point of the better than zero strategy. Hoard running backs and let them come to you as the injury replacement guys. So that is kind of a weird pick by me, but I kind of like the way I'm going with those picks.
Okay, I'm going to stop sharing. That was good stuff. We've never done that before. What'd you think? You like it?
It's fun running through this, and I will say that I usually prefer long drafts where you've got a long time to ponder a pick.
Yeah.
And I will sometimes take a half hour or more to talk through and look at different options and kind of look, see them through. But I didn't want this whole adventure to last 14 hours for
No,
you,
yeah. We
our listener
lasted a
and viewer.
while, yeah, but we had
So
fun.
we wanted to make sure we hit an early pick and a late
Late
pick
pick.
slot to
Yep.
give you two examples
I
of how
like that.
better than zero will work out. Did you see some similarities that there were some guys that ended up on both rosters?
I did see that, and uh, I was amazed how deep you were going in the running backs. Like I said, you and I split our journey late. I'm probably not as laser focused on running backs. And part of the reason is my process diary says I'm good at waiver wire pickups and beating the crowd. So in case I miss some of these that you got, a lot of times others are missing them too. And my snap data and efficiency data that I run during the season, a lot of times I can pick up things happening and have an advantage. And so I'm going to uh, use that as a way to kind of get around how you're kind of more approaching that. In other words, I might get there with some of your folks, but I'll probably do it a different way to get to that same position. But folks, with the diary, Dennis just outlined his journey. He's got it now on record. He knows what he did. He can go back at the end of the season, check all this. If this was a real league, you save your draft board, you make some notes. If it's like a real big money league or whatever, now's the time while it's still fresh. Don't come back tomorrow and try to remember what you were thinking, right? Feel free to screenshot your draft. And if it's a fast draft and you've got it there, you can even talk to yourself. You don't have to broadcast. You can, okay, I'm taking this. I mean, you can kind of record your process. But my diary says I'm good at waiver wires, and I tend to be pretty good at what I'm doing. So, but I did note how Dennis approached things. And one day we're going to have simulation software that can get really advanced. And I hope to potentially, maybe really focus on what Dennis is doing and not doing. But right now, this is the best that he and I got. And Dennis, I appreciate you taking me through it because I learned a few things about some of those fringe players. So you've got me sold on the Minnesota wide receiver. I have not been looking for him too deeply. Now I'm thinking, okay, yeah. So it was good to hear some of your thinking, and I'm going to incorporate some of that in my further drafts before the season starts.
And one of the strategies that I really stumbled across this year, and it made a lot of sense to me when I looked at it. And I do like to look at different strategies that are put up there. And Scott Simpson, who goes by Nimble W Numbers over on Twitter, has been sort of beta testing over the last 3 years something that he calls the WR2 theory. And that is he looks at the second wide receiver drafted for a team and how successful they've been on his fantasy team. So a lot of times you're looking at guys like Jalen Waddle, you're looking at Brandon Ayuk, you're looking at Devontae Smith, and they're a lot closer in value to the top wide receiver on that team. But one of the guys that he did like, based on he's a younger Adam Thielen type of strategy, a guy that should be a pretty good route runner right from the beginning. And that's sometimes a problem with rookies. Sometimes in the college game, they're just such better athletes than everybody else that's on the field that they don't need to be the crisp route runner that they need to be in the NFL. Addison is that. He had some injury issues during his college career, and that may have dropped him a little bit in the draft, but he's a guy that I'm really targeting. If he's around in that 7th, 8th round area, he's a guy that I will grab. The other guy at running back that I really like, obviously, is DeAndre Swift. He ended up being a key part of both of my teams.
Yep.
And then some of the rookie running backs, I will take a shot at, Professor, because my diary tells me that if I shoot and miss at running back, that's okay, because my specialty on the waiver wires is picking up wide receivers that flash early in a season, that they're going to be a lot better. I'm great at targeting those guys after the first week or two. And so I'll take my 10th running back that I drafted and I'll make him available by cutting him to add that wide receiver who's got that upside. The other thing I'm really good at is picking up the running backs that are the backup to the backup. And in this case, on one of my drafts, that was Dwayne McBride from Minnesota, who's clearly the third string guy. Rojo with Dallas is clearly the third or fourth guy. I will pick up those guys and let the backup to the backup be on my roster. So when the injuries start and the free agent bidding for players start, I've already got the guy. So I don't have to worry about being outbid because I've been on him a week or two early, or in this case, right from the draft. But the key to the better than zero strategy is once you have +2 versus the number of wide receivers that start. So in a wide receiver 2 league, once I've got 4 wide receivers, I'm not really looking to add a 5th or 6th guy unless they're really a guy that has great upside. I'm not looking at ordinary players. I'm not looking at starter level players. I'm looking at guys that if they get a chance, have the big upside potential. That's a Jalen Hyatt from New England who ended up on both of my teams. That's a Cedric Tillman from Cleveland, who is a guy I almost added in both teams. The key late in the draft is all upside potential. I do not care if the guy that I'm picking is the 54th wide receiver. If he finishes 50th in points, that is a loss. I want a guy who's got the potential to be a top 25 guy in weekly value. And that's why a lot of times I'll go rookie heavy at wide receiver late in the draft, because these are guys that maybe they don't start the first 6 weeks, but they can turn it on once they get a chance and get in that lineup and learn the NFL. So by week 8, 9, 10, when I might need the backup wide receiver, they're already established as a pretty strong waiver wire ad. But guess what? They're already on my team, so I like them. Jameson Williams from Detroit was another guy I wanted to briefly mention, because I do not like wide receivers who are on a long suspension. I want guys available from week 1 if I can have them in redraft. In best ball, it's a little bit different. I'll take a chance if I get him added at the right price. He was the right price as my 5th wide receiver in the 11th round. That was a bargain for Jameson Williams, who, if he wasn't suspended, would have been going in the top 4 rounds this year. So again, I don't need the backup wide receiver probably until late in the year. Late in the year, as wide receivers start falling by the wayside, because a few will lose games to injuries, I've got a backup potential guy who will be pretty darn good. I was disappointed with one thing. In 2 different drafts from two different draft slots. I didn't end up with the sun god this year, a guy that was on about 90% of my single season teams last year. But this year, he's being drafted closer to what his weekly value is. And as a result, he's not ending up on many of my teams at all.
Yeah, I haven't been able to draft a lot of him either, and maybe that's just where I've been picking. I think he's been going earlier than I think maybe he even should get. You know, people seem to really probably overplay his last year. I mean, there was a lot of greatness, but you know, you can't buy them at their price or above their price. And you and I talk about that. So I may miss out on him this year. We were all over him last year. Probably not this year. I've got other people, right?
Just like Jalen Hurts was the value of the year at quarterback last year, he was falling to the 7th round in single season one quarterback leagues last year. He was the big bargain. If I don't go elite quarterback early, and in both of these drafts, I overpaid for quarterback because I wanted to secure the elite guy. I felt confident securing the elite quarterback and the elite tight ends because I had guys like Swift. I had guys like Juju Smith-Schuster. I had guys like Bigsby even, who I think are going to be good values. I had Damian Harris, who I think is going to be really, really strong. By having those later round wide or running backs on team one, I didn't take a running back until round 3. In the second draft from the 8th slot, I didn't take a running back until I had my tight end, my elite quarterback, and my top 3 running backs. I did not take a running back until round 6. So it shows that this year, especially, the running backs, the quality running backs are falling a lot later than you think. And these 2 simulated drafts are very close to what we're seeing in a lot of quality leagues I've been drafting in. Wide receivers are going much earlier than they went the last couple of years. Running backs are falling, and I think there's some great running back values in that 3rd to 8th round area, which has been known as the dead zone for running backs over the years. This year, I think that there will be some better plums to pick from that harvest in those key rounds.
I like forging and hoarding, so I agree with you, Dennis. It was fun. I enjoyed this whole thing. I learned a lot. Thank you.
Well, Professor, it's been a great, great episode here. It was fun to draft 2 teams live. We have a special episode coming up on Friday of this week. That'll probably be posted over the weekend. You know, that editor guy, he takes a little time to get some stuff done. But Friday afternoon, we will be recording our 100th episode.
Oh my goodness.
Since you encouraged me to start these. You were the brains behind starting this Science of Fantasy Football podcast way back when we were on with the fake pigskin. We missed the pig, but we're enjoying continuing the odyssey of hopefully making folks smarter fantasy football players.
I like it, man. It's been fun.
And I'm going to load these teams in such a way that I can grade my success on a weekly basis to see how my scores do against a typical 1 flex league and see how well my drafts went this year that we did live here.
I think it keeps
on the
a
show.
recording of. I think I can pull up your stuff if you didn't get a chance. for your
Very cool. I'm
rosters.
going to enjoy looking at these teams.
Okay.
Enjoy looking at how these teams scored throughout the year, and I'm going to try to make a weekly lineup out of both of these teams and score along and see how I do against a median score
That'd be
in
nice.
such a draft like this. It'll be a lot of fun. And so, Professor, I encourage everybody to head over to scienceoffantasyfootball.com.
Yep.
Check out all of your great lesson plans. I am telling you, folks, when it comes to things like defense against position and ADP studies, nobody does it better than the professor. And his counts over median study, you need to take a look at that, folks. I think that is going to be the big edge in fantasy football going forward. And head over to For Frequency's sake, check out another edition of the Data Lab over the weekend. And of course, head on back to scienceoffantasyfootball.com for another edition, our 100th edition, coming up next here on the Science of Fantasy Football.
Get to work, folks.